Om Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jyamudiyayat. Nasta Presa Bhadrasu Nityam Bhagavata Sevyam Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistake. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3. Krishna is the source of all incarnations, from text 29 onwards. I read the Sanskrit first. Janma Guyam Bhagavato Yate Tat Payato Naram Sayam Pratarhinan Bhaktya Dukkha Ramat Vimuchyate. Translation. Whoever carefully recites this mysterious appearance of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. Omajana Timandasya Chansala Slaka Sexually Tam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Nama Chitayamana Bishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Swamrupakadamyam dadati svapalantikam Vandeham Shiru Shiyuda Padakam Shiram Vaishnavamsa Shirupam Jagajatam Sakanaraganatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savrutam Parjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Shah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Chatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanesh Devi Pranamama Haripriya Pankha Kapta Vishaki Pasinabhe Visha Patanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Read the verse again. Jannaguyam Bhagavato Yatita Payato Nara Swayam Patarhinam Bhaktya Dukkha Ramat Vimuchyate. Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearance of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So this is the Phala Shruti, the result of hearing this chapter on the incarnations. You get relief of all miseries. So there is a mystery here. Janma Guyam Bhagavato. Although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, he takes his birth. He has Janma, and this is mysterious. How can someone who is birthless, the source of everything, take birth? Therefore, it is called Guyam, mysterious. Kunti Devi said, Antar Bahir Avashtitam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-15. So, Antar Bahir Avashtitam, you are within and without. So, Srila Prabhupada said many times, God is within yourself. You are outside and inside, but still nobody can see you. Just as an actor is disguised, Queen Kunti says. Krishna is disguised. Nobody can recognize him. In the purport 5 lines down, Srila Prabhupada describes how to discover the mystery. Therefore, that's the purport here, few lines down, starts here. Therefore, the birth and activities of the Lord, as manifested by him for the welfare of the people in general, are not ordinary. They are mysterious, and only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. Thus one gets liberation from material bondage. So spiritual devotion in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We know the verse Janma karma samedikam evam yovit tatvata tyaktva deyam punarjanma naikamamiti soyana. Tatvataha means that it is not a superficial thing. We need to go very deep into the tattva, then we can understand the birth and activities of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada in the purport gives us another result from chanting this chapter. Thus one gets liberation from material bondage. It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations, in sincerity and devotion, can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. So here is another Fala Shruti given by Srila Prabhupada. So whenever you have trouble in understanding this mystery, you chant this chapter. This is Srila Prabhupada's benediction. And then at the end, the very word vimukti or liberation indicates that the Lord's birth and activities are all transcendental. Otherwise, simply by reciting them, we could not attain liberation. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulation of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his births and activities. So before the Lord recited the verses of Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam to Brahma, he said in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31, Sarahasyam, with devotional services, the translation, Sarahasyam. So this is very confidential knowledge. There is a mystery. The Lord's activities are mysterious because they are transcendental. They are beyond our understanding. They are in another dimension. We cannot understand. Shanma Guyam Bhagavato in this verse. No? Srila Prabhupada reveals what is this mystery in his lecture on this verse. He says, actually, Janma means God's appearance. God is appearing every moment, everywhere. How is this possible? Generally, we understand that Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. How can he be appearing every moment, everywhere? Of course, there is this aprakat lila that which manifests in the devotee's heart, not only in another universe. So the Lord is wherever the devotee chants his glories. Krishna's pastime are going on right now in some universe, and we may go there after this life. But Srila Prabhupada was referring to the deity factory, as he was giving the class in front of Radha Krishna. We see the deity as Krishna who came to give his mercy, but others will see him as stone. Srila Prabhupada said, actually, he's here, we can see him, but we have to become purified. People do not want to see God. If you show them the deity, they will say, this is not Yaita Prayatona Ra. This is the second line of the verse. Prayata. We are endeavoring in our Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada says we are endeavoring. We are not yet perfect. Srila Prabhupada interprets that any person endeavoring to understanding Krishna through the Shastra and through devotional service, he will get this result. He will get free from miseries and he will get insight. So Srila Prabhupada was lecturing on 4.9. If if you know and understand Krishna's pastimes, then you will not take birth again. Srila Prabhupada said that if you just try to understand Krishna's birth and activities, then you will become liberated. So you just try to understand. And when do we chant Sayam Pratah, morning and evening? Then Srila Prabhupada said, when done with sincerity and devotion, with bhakti, then you will get results. Sayam Pratah Hinam Bhaktya, with devotion. So we have now finished the list of incarnations. And now we go to text 30, the beginning of the last section of this chapter, which goes until text 44. Etarupam bhagavato iyarupasya sit atmana maya guna virashitam madadebir atmani. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophyte to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. So we have heard a list of all incarnations, and we learned that Krishna is the source of all incarnations in verse 28. Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam. Now we will deal with the Vishvarup, and who can understand the form of the Lord, and who cannot understand the form of the Lord, and also about the Lord's energies. We will hear a very nice description. And at the end of the chapter, we will hear about the incarnation that we are now presently be worshipping. We will finish this chapter answering the last question of the sages. So the Vishvarup form is very much loved by the impersonalist. It is good for them to meditate on the Vishvarup. By such meditation, they get out of their impersonal conception, and they can gradually progress to a personal conception of God. So that is the whole purpose of the Vishvarup meditation. It is for the neophytes who have no concept of the Lord. In a lecture, Srila Prabhupada explained that this Vishvarup is actually the external body of Krishna. When Krishna left this universe, he left beyond a material body, and that body is the Vishvarup. Of course, it is also to delude the atheist that they performed that pastime. Srila Prabhupada explained that just as we, the soul within the body, we have an external covering. So in the same way, the Vishvarup is the covering of the Paramatma. Srila Prabhupada in 111 purport says that the material creation is the external body of the Lord. That's in the purport. So this is what we are studying now in a little more detail. Srila Prabhupada explains, just like our heart is beating, our blood is going to the veins, our digesting is working. In the Vishvarup, the sun is rising, the eyes are opening, and the veins, the rivers are flowing, and the trees are growing, the hairs on the body. Now there's a very nice explanation if we go back to the 3rd verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives a nice explanation of the Vishvarup. Purport 1:3:3. So as stated above, the Lord extends his potency in the form of the Mahatattva, which includes all material ingredients. The extension of power by the Lord and the Lord himself are one in one sense, but at the same time, the Mahatattva is different from the Lord. Therefore, the potency of the Lord and the Lord are simultaneously different and non-different. The conception of the Virat group, especially for the impersonalist, is thus non-different from the internal form of the Lord. So, how is the Vishvarup one with the Lord? And how is the Vishvarup different from the Lord? So, it is one with the Lord because it's non-different from his energy. And for the Lord there is no material energy, and therefore it is one. Material energy means something that is covering the Lord. He cannot be covered from himself. But for us there is material energy. Our vision is covered. He is covering himself from our vision. And how is he different from the Lord? He is beyond, he's not limited to a particular form. It is a temporary manifestation. It is imaginary. How is it imaginary? We will read on before we answer this question that so there are many forms which are not original, but they are still like Vishnu. In this purport here, which is on the screen now, Srila Prabhupada explains how the Vishvarup is imaginary. At the end of the purport, that's here. The material conception of the Lord is not counted in the list of his actual forms. As Paramatma Super Soul, the Lord is within each and every material form, even within the atoms. But the outward form is but an imagination. But for the Lord and for the living being, the present form of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. So not only the Vishvarup is imaginary, also our bodies are imaginary. Although it was imaginary, Arjuna could see it. Now, text 31 and 32. Yatana basi me kaho renuva prativonile evam dastare dristyatvam aropitam abodibhi. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant materially bodily conception in the spirit soul. Text 32. Ataparam yatapyaktam ayudagona brinnitam atristasruta vastutvat sajivoyat punarbhava. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without form of shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety. Otherwise, he could not have repeated births. So there is a conception of the gross form, but there is a conception of the subtle form. The subtle form is unheard and unseen. Impersonalists want to meditate on the gross form of the Vishvarup, or the subtle form, the unheard, unseen, the unmanifested, which they conceive as being without form. That's now text 33. Yatre misatta satrope pratisides vas samvida avidyatmani krite ittadbrahma darshanam. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, second half of the first paragraph, that so he writes, a man who is engaged in the activities of the self is called Jivan Mukta, or a liberated person, even in the conditional existence. Then in the middle of the second paragraph, and by culture of transcendental knowledge, when the living being prays to the Lord for deliverance from the clutches of forgetfulness, the Lord by his causeless mercy removes the living being's illusory curtain, and thus he realizes his own self. He then engages himself in the service of the Lord in his eternal constitutional position, becoming liberated from the conditioned life. And this is executed by the Lord either through his external potency or directly by the internal potency. This will be more elaborately explained in the next verse and purport. And that we will hear now, 34. Yat Yesu Parata Devi Maya Vaishagadi Mati Sampana Eviti Vidu Maim Nisve Mayate. So, purport, first translation. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. The purport is very interesting. The third senses. The same energy acts as his external energy and marginal energies, and by small potency can perform anything and everything through the agency of any of the above energies. So it can interchange internal, external, marginal, and use it for any purpose. It can turn the external into the internal by his will. Therefore, continue, by his grace, the external energy which is employed in illusioning those living beings who want to have it, subsides by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance for the conditioned souls. So this is a very interesting statement by Srila Prabhupada. The external energy subsides in terms of repentance and penance. So if we use the material energy for spiritual purposes and penance and repentance, then it changes its nature. So you may fall down as a devotee, but if you feel repentance, then that may help you to advance in spiritual life. Bhagavad Gita 15:15, the super soul is covering, but with the same energy can give knowledge if the conditions are fulfilled, if you repent. Also in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Devayasa Gunamaya, this energy is divine. How can this be? Krishna's orders, you must release this living entity. Then Krishna orders that if you surrender to Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 7:25, Yogamaya Samamvitam, I'm covered by my Yogamaya. My spiritual energy is covering me. That, of course, for Krishna, it is spiritual. By penance and engaged in devotional service, one shows Krishna that one is serious. Mother Narayani made the following comment. You come to a certain point in your devotional service from Shraddha to Prema where you start repenting. And you start to feel sorry for all the things you did, why you came in this world. When you see yourself feeling like this, then you can understand that Krishna is removing the external energy. That's interesting. That the material energy is subsiding. So it gives great hope. It is good to repent, because when you repent, you won't do it again. Repentance means that you are genuinely sorry and you won't do it again. When Maharaj Pariksit heard about the curse, he thought it's very good. This is very good. This is nice. So I won't make this mistake again, that I offended this sage. I will not do this again. This is good for me. Srila Prabhupada's purport on Maharaj Pariksit 119.1. All kinds of sins. Such repentance delivers the devotee from accidentally committed sins. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, there, the movements of the living entity. That's the chapter. There's a chapter near the end in the teachings of Kapila Deva. So there it is said, there is a repentance in the womb of the mother. The child feels repentant and thinks, as soon as I'm out, I'm going to be a devotee. As soon as he gets out, he forgets. Yeah. So, So here it speaks about material and spiritual energy and using it interchangeably. There is an example in Srimad Bhagavatam where material energy acted as spiritual energy. They are both acting at the same time in a situation. So in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, something happened to a great devotee, and he could see the material and spiritual energy acting at the same time. It was Vidura. When he was insulted by Duryodhana, he felt the insult was piercing his heart. Srila Prabhupada wrote that Vidura could see how Duryodhana was under the influence of the external material energy, that he was going to hell. At the same time, he saw that the internal energy was working for him. He never liked the palace and the politics. He was always thinking, how am I going to get away from this? When am I actually be able to devote myself to Krishna? So when this happened, he was so happy. Srila Prabhupada wrote, within he was thinking, Duryodhana, within he was thanking Duryodhana. The external energy was acting on Vidura, and it was acting externally on Duryodhana. One is elevated, it's degraded by the same energy. So Vidura was very happy because he felt obligated to his brother Dhritarashtra. I have to stay, I have to preach, I have to help him. But finally he was insulted. Then he thought, my obligation is finished. I'm leaving, my life is for Krishna, and he left. This is an example of internal and external energy working at the same time. So the devotee, by his attitude, can change from material to spiritual. For this, you need to see things on a different level of observation. So hopefully Srimad Bhagavatam will give us this vision. Now, text 35. Evam janmani karmani iakarto ajanasya cha varanayanti svakavayo vedaguyani ritpatehe. The learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable, even in the Vedic literature. He is the Lord of the heart. So this one sentence has contradictions in it. The birth of the unborn and the activities of the inactive. So we won't go in that right now, but Queen Kunti will go into that. In those verses, you will hear about that. So in the last verses, in the previous verse, we heard about the Lord's energy interchangeable. In this verse, we heard about Paramatma. In verse 36, we will hear about Bhagavan. Savaidam Vishvamamo Galila Shayatavatatena Chachatismin Bhute Sukantarita Atma Tantra Satvarhikam Shikhate Satgunesa. The Lord's activities are always spotless. Whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. So now, text 37. Sasasikashin nipunena datu avet chantu kamana nisha uti namani rupane mano vachubi santan vatonata charyam evachya. The foolish with a poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculation nor in their words. That 38. Saveta datu padavin parasya duranta viryasya rahangapani yomayayat santanayan navritya. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service until lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the Creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. So we have a few words added to pure devotional service here. It says unreserved, uninterrupted, that we heard already, and favorable. So who is this Lord who has a wheel of a chariot in his hand? It is Partha Sarati. That you can see him in the Delhi temple. That at the end of the purport. Such favorable servitors are devotees of the Lord, and by the grace of the Lord they can enter into the mysterious region of transcendence by the mercy of the Lord. But the mental speculators remain in darkness all the time. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself guides the pure devotees toward the paths of realization due to their constant engagement in the loving service of the Lord in spontaneous affection. This is a secret of entering into the kingdom of God. Fruitive activities and speculation are no qualifications for entering. So it seems really hopeless for the poor karmis and the jnanis. They are in the darkness. What can we do for them? What is the hope for the karmas and the jnanis? How can they get out of the darkness? What is their hope? We could give them maybe prasadam. We are opening centers all over the world and give people opportunity to hear Krishna Katha. This is Srila Prabhupada's blessing. Even if they remain in the dark, the devotees will go to the dark and deliver the message to them to get them out of the dark. There is hope, even if they cannot understand Krishna in their present position. 39. Ateyadanya Bhagavantaitam Yatva Sudeve Kila Lokanate Yobandi Samatmakamatma Bhavan Nayatra Boya Parivatava. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries, invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of God, that is the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantees 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. Now, Sutta Goswami is coming to conclusion. He is referring back to the beginning where the sages ask such nice questions. And he's also referring to this verse, the verse 1 to 10, Shivasya Tattva Jijnasa, mentioning that you should only preserve a healthy life so you can ask questions. So now he will explain what is going to happen if you ask questions like that. If you devote the human form of life to inquire about the absolute truth, you will develop ecstatic love for Krishna. So this is so wonderful. This is another hidden benediction by Sutta Goswami, and is also benedicting the sages 14. Idam Bhagavantam Nama Paramam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Sloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishresya Sayadokasya Danyam Vasta Janam Mahat. The Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God and is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. So now we hear about Srimad Bhagavatam as an incarnation. Where did we hear about this ultimate good of all people? Does that sound familiar? Ikantata Shriya, this was the sage's question. And the answer is 1 to 6. Vaipum Saparodam. Then Nisrasyasya Lokasya. This is the good for all people. Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate good for all people. And 41, 42. Taditam Grahayam Masa Suttam Atma Vatam Varam Sarva Vedeti Hasanam Saram Samutritam. Sri Vyasadeva delivered to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Satu samsravayam masa maharjam parikshitam. Maharajam parikshitam prayopavistam gangayam paritam paramashibhi. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Srila Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great Emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by the sages of the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink. And now the answer of the last question of the sages. Krishna Svadamaparate Dharmo Jnanadipi Saham Kalanasati Samesa Purnarko Dunodita. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc., Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada describes the condition of the living entities. In the Kali Yuga, the population is just like a royal addition of animals. So, anyway, Mother Narayani said there is a book written, Animal Farm. This book shows how people are nothing than different kind of animals. They have nothing to do with spiritual knowledge or godly religious life. They are so blind that they cannot see anything beyond the jurisdiction of the subtle mind, intelligence, or ego. But they are very much proud of their advancement in knowledge, science, and material prosperity. They can risk their lives to become a dog or a hog just after leaving the present body, for they have completely lost sight of the ultimate aim of life. So what is an example of someone risking their life to become a dog or a hog in their next life? Some dangerous occupation. Indra, he became a hog. Prabhupada said that a certain politician in India became one of 2 dogs in Sweden. So you can think. So further, the purpose. The personality of God, that Sri Krishna, appeared before us just little prior to the beginning of Kali Yuga. And he returned to his eternal home practically at the commencement of Kali Yuga. So, while he was present, he exhibited everything by his different activities. He spoke by the Bhagavad Gita specifically and eradicated all pretentious principles of religiosity. And prior to this, his departure from this material world, he empowered Srila Vyasadeva through Narada to compile the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And thus both the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are torch bearers for the blind people of this age. In other words, the men in this age of Kali want to see the real light of life. They must take to these 2 books only, and their aim of life will be fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is a sum and bone of life, Lord Sri Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad Bhagavatam as a direct representation of Lord Krishna. One who can see Srimad Bhagavatam can also sees also Lord Sri Krishna in person. They are identical. So then we have the last verse, and in the purport we will hear how we can hear with rapt attention. Tatra kirtayato vipra viparsha bhuviteyasa ham satyagamam tatra nivishtatat anugrahat soham vashavaishyami yataditam yatamati. O learned Brahmins, when Sukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I've realized it. And then you have this purport here. That the purport, one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Sri Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized soul like Sukadeva Goswami. So later Srila Prabhupada writes, simply, hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. The What Nivishta means that Sutta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam to his ears. Nivishta. It's like Vibhata in 1144 of the Bhagavatam. Nivishta. So he drank the juice of Bhagavatam to his ears. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can realize the presence of Lord Krishna in every page. The secret of knowing Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, faring, and mating. But somehow or another, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it seems to be very difficult, a very difficult process, as you need purity in mind, in action, in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But Srila Prabhupada puts in a mercy clause here. Somehow or other, if you don't have all this qualification, if you're here with rapt attention, what does it mean somehow or another? Does that mean that one day you get it and the other day not? That some points maybe one can get it by the mercy of a pure devotee, like King Raugana Imachad Bharat, who instructed him. He says, by any means, one may not be pure, but one may be very desperate to hear. So being very repentive is also helpful. Bhagavad Gita 13:26. If you cannot do karma yoga or jnana yoga, then just hear. So the pure devotee can lift you beyond our disturbed mind. So even if we have these disqualifications, we can agree to hear. We try to follow the four related principles that will help our focus also and remove the distraction that so this last verse, and this is very important. There's a whole process in this verse that because Sutta Goswami says, yes, when Maharaj Pariksit was hearing from Sukadev Goswami, I was also there. That when Sukadev Goswami recited the Bhagavatam, and I heard him with rapt attention. And then he says, I will make you hear the very same thing as I learned from my spiritual master. And I realized this. So a preacher, he preaches and says the same thing as he heard, but he explains it also in terms of his own realization. That because he has a certain level of realization and can explain it up to that level. Because he has realization, he has overcome the obstacles and he can explain it to others to do it. So that is important here. So we are at the end of this third chapter. So this is based on my preparations for the Bhakti Vaibhav course. That therefore we do a number of verses during our weekly presentation. Are there any questions or comments, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you
Right.
very much, Maharaj, for wonderful class and all the references. Maharaj, about the first verse in today's class, it was mentioning that we should, one who recites recites all the incarnations. I'm just trying to refer them.
Yeah.
Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So Maharaj, how to in day-to-day life, how to understand, because as we understand that we need to surrender to come out of the miseries of life, right? So surrender is a big process. We need to follow few rules and regulations or do's and don'ts, then try to surrender ourselves, and then we will end the miseries. But this particular verse is telling about just recite and then morning and evening and you will be free. So how to understand, Maharaj?
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada gave us the same process. Hearing about Krishna in the morning and in the evening, whether it is about the incarnations or other parts of the Bhagavatam, it's always about Krishna. So we hear it in the morning, the Bhagavatam, and in the evening, we are hearing Bhagavad Gita. That is the process, because by hearing with attention, we generally get knowledge of Krishna. And this knowledge of Krishna is helping us to come to the level of Sambandha Jnana, understanding Krishna's position, our position, and our relationship. And that brings us also in the right mood to perform abhideya, the practice of devotional service. So therefore, it's very important. It does not mean that you read this chapter one time and you are free from miseries. No, you have to go to the process. But how quick is the process going to go? That's a question that depends on your eagerness to hear. That Srila Prabhupada said, I have no qualifications, but if I have one qualification is that I was eager to hear. So that's a very important qualification. So if we only chant Hare Krishna and we don't hear about Krishna, then we will not develop the inner attitude to perform devotional service with the correct mode of our understanding who Krishna is. And by that we make offenses. Because if you don't understand who Krishna is, you also do not understand what the holy name is. So that is, and if we don't hear in the morning and the evening about Krishna, then Srila Prabhupada said, why am I writing these books? For you to read. If you don't read them, Guru Abhakya. That's the third offense against the holy name. So we cannot develop the proper attitude for chanting if we don't hear it. Then our chanting will have little effect, or it will go very slow. But if we hear with attention, then we will make swift advancement. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. Very nice, Maharaj. Very nice answer. Because, if we just do a process without understanding Krishna, then there is no point. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Good.
Yes. Maharaj, this is Divesh Prabhu, who is also visiting from Atlanta. Please come.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
in the verse before this one, I believe it mentioned about how Parikshit Maharaj fasted, for 7 days in order to listen to the Bhagavatam. Similarly, Dhruva Maharaj, he fasted on fruits, and then water, and then complete fast. Is this because if we eat, we get associated with our material bodies, and it can also tamper with our consciousness?
I didn't hear the last point clearly. Can you repeat it?
Right. So while Parikshit Maharaj fasted completely for 7 days while listening to the Bhagavatam.
Right, yeah.
And when Dhruva Maharaj, when he went into the forest, he was on fruits, then roots, and then water, and then complete fast. Is it because, like, if we eat food, we get associated with our material bodies, which would prevent us in a way from realizing or experiencing Krishna?
No, Maharaj Parikshit, he got the news I have only 7 days to live. So he did not want to lose any time with eating anymore. He wanted only to hear about Krishna. That's his reason. Dhruva Maharaj, he followed a different process. He followed the process of austerities. But Narada Muni tricked him and said, okay, you want to do your austerities, fine. But you chant also Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. A little moment, because someone is ringing here at the door and I have to open. I'm back in a minute. Thank you. So I'm back. So in other words, the Dhruva Maharaj had a different process, but Narada Muni tricked him, and he asked him to meditate on a deity and to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So they have their particular reasons for doing that. But fasting is not our process. It's hearing, remembering, and chanting. And we keep the body healthy. Because we need the body for these purposes. So, of course, we don't eat too much, not too less either. But this is not our process. But Maharaj breaks it out, yeah. I have to leave my body anyway soon. I don't lose any time with this anymore. And Srila Prabhupada did the same thing. He had to, his digestion did not work anymore. He said, what's the use? And he fasted at the end, the last days. Does that help?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Mataji has.
Thank you for the nice talk. Maharaj, I just have one question. Why is the universal form called imaginary? Did Krishna show that form actually to Arjuna?
Can you speak louder? I don't.
Why is the universal form called imaginary? Did Krishna show that form to Arjuna?
No,
is it because it's without the purpose, or?
That's described in the second canto, universal form. So it's described, is the clouds are his hairs, and the vegetation are the hairs on his body, and so on. It's just for the sake of meditation. It's not that the clouds are the universal, are the hairs of the universal form. It's for meditation purposes, but it is imaginary. But it's a way for the materialist, the impersonalist, to meditate on a form of the Lord, although imaginary, and that will help them to make advancement. The Lord is the form is imaginary, yes. That of course he gave Arjuna the eyes. Krishna gave him the eyes to see the universal form in one place. But it's different from what we are described at the beginning of the second canto. Krishna has different universal forms that he can show, and that. But yes, it's temporary, and the form that impersonalists meditate on is imaginary, but it's good for them to meditate on it. That's explained in the Bhagavatam. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to see you again next
Yes,
week.
Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, you have like few more minutes. If I have one more question, if you have, otherwise we can talk.
Okay. Yes.
Is that okay, Maharaj?
Yeah.
So Maharaj, it's not related to the class, but it is related to overall the seva and services what we do. So many times, effort is to do the seva right way, do services the right way. But then sometimes we get issues which actually impacts our thought process, as well as we feel disheartened or unhappy while doing the seva. A few things happen, and then wanted to understand to still focus so that we can continue to do the seva positively.
Yeah, it happens many times that we are confronted with challenging situations and we feel not happy. That, of course, that feeling comes up into the mind mostly due to frustration. But the fact that Krishna is pleased or not does not depend on your state of mind. That is not because everyone may be satisfied with your service, but that does not mean that Krishna is not satisfied. That especially in management, we see that you become a temple resident and you get so many negative things coming up that and we feel unhappy. But that does not mean that Krishna and Srila Prabhupada is not pleased. That it's the illusory energy who tries to discourage you many times. So we should not take that feeling in the mind so serious. The mind is not serious. If we take the mind serious, then we come in trouble. That's my experience. You have to be very careful with that. But the point is, if you do the right thing, That's also in the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Yudhishthira, that Bhishma Dev said because he felt dissatisfied, Maharaj Yudhishthira. Millions of soldiers had been killed just to bring me on the throne. He felt very dissatisfied. But Bhishma Dev told him that, but there is Krishna's plan. It was not about you. He used him. He used you in his plan. So that is something we should consider. We are not here to have a happy life and a happy situation of the mind. No. That if the mind is satisfied or dissatisfied, still it causes you to die and to go to another body. So should not take this mind too serious. That's what I could say. I know it's not easy to overcome the power of the mind, but by good spiritual practice, we can at least keeping it under control. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for giving the reference of Yudhishthira Maharaj and Bhishma Dev, and reminding the mind is, is never happy. And we should try to keep it in corner.
Yeah. Very good. So next week I'll be in Germany, if Krishna willing, if my health allows. And
Yes.
I will normally give the class from Kobukadam in Germany.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Jai Prabhupada.